What's up guys? This is Evan with Backwoods Adventure Mods. Today we're going to walk through an installation of our brand new product, and that's the 2024 Land Cruiser 250 DRIFTR series roof rack. Like the rest of our roof racks, it's all aluminum and it comes in the standard black texture powder coat. It's also compatible with our roof rack accessories like the dog bone, the awning mounts, and the deck panels. Let's check out the features. This is going to be a simple installation, no drilling, just a bolt-on. Like all our DRIFTR racks, we use the really beefy 1x3 extrusions for superior strength. The side rails are cut from 1/4 inch aluminum as well. We pre-drill these on 12-inch centers for the extrusions, but we also include these slots so you can put the extrusions wherever you want. We also include 3 of these grab handles, which is great for getting up on the side of the rig, and also you can get your hand in for hardware if needed. And if you want to dress it up a little more, the hole spacing is pre-drilled for the Agency 6 grab handles. The rear fairing has knockouts for chase lights. If you don't want to run chase lights, we leave this in. It's a cool little design. If you do, you just snip the 4 tabs and use this universal mounting slot to mount your chase light from. The front fairing also has a bunch of our universal slots, and these are cut for a 3/8 inch carriage bolt and a 1/4 inch carriage bolt, so you have your choice of hardware, and you can put really as many pods as you want across this, as many as will fit at least. And then of course on the end we have pre-cut holes for the 40-inch light bar light tabs. And then of course you'll have your mounting hardware and accessories and the mounts. Let's get started. Step 1 is disassembly. We're going to pop these top caps off. They're just clipped in. You basically lift up, and when both clips come out, you pull it forward, or on the back one we'll be pulling rearward. Same thing on the back. Now the center one is just a little bit different. It's divided, it snaps together here in the back. You can see a bit of a seam there. I'm just going to wedge my tool in between and pop it forward. Same thing on this end. There. And it slides out the side. That has your hardware exposed. We're going to use a 12mm socket and take out the 5 visible bolts. Then it just lifts off. The center mount had some concealed hardware. They're a 10mm socket. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. First thing we're going to do is install the mounts down to the roof. Now you'll notice there's several different types of mount brackets. You have this one, which has no holes in the bottom. That's going to go at the very front, and we'll do that one later. Next, in the front location that does have mounting holes in the roof, is this crazy looking one here. This part faces outwards. For the rear 2 mounts per side, you've got this L bracket shape. This side faces out. So we're going to start at the front. We're going to watertight these holes by putting some silicone in and around each hole. Then we'll kind of squish this spacer block down over the silicone. Then we'll set the mounting bracket on top of that. On the other 2, of course, the mounting bracket will set like this. So you're going to use these stainless bolts and flat washer that we include. You can reuse the OEM hardware if you like, but I'm going to use our supplied hardware. I also like to put just a little dab of silicone around the threads. So spacer block, mounting bracket, bolt. These bolts use a 13mm socket. We're just going to kind of snug these down just enough to hold them in place. We do want to be able to adjust this throughout the process. We'll come back and snug them down the rest of the way later. Okay, so it's adjustable. We're going to do the same thing on the other 5 mounts. Now we're going to hang the first side. This is something you can do by yourself. Just be very careful that you don't scratch the rail. It's easier to have a buddy, but it's totally doable by yourself. So I'm just going to bring it up into place, and you'll be able to see the mounting holes will line up with the holes in the mounts. So I'm just going to throw a bolt through there for the meantime. Kind of let it rest. I'm going to put a couple of these in just so it doesn't sit too far down. I'm holding some pressure on it so it doesn't fall. And then I'll climb up on the back side and put in a flat washer, a lock washer, and a nut. Once I get a couple of them going, I'll go back and put the rest of them in. But this way it's safe and now it's not gonna fall. After I get these in, I'm gonna leave them just snug, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. Next, we're gonna put our crossbars in. Now, you'll probably notice on these extrusions, there's some holes drilled on one side. I like to turn that side down so you can't see it. Those holes are there because that's how we hang these in the powder coat oven. So I turn them down, doesn't matter if you forget. Now this part is a little faster if you have a helper. You don't have to. So what I'm gonna do is lay this carefully on that towel over there, because the last thing you wanna do is scratch the roof. Towel in place, I'll put this side in, and then I'll lift the other side up. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and snug these down now all the way while I'm at it. There's no reason to leave these loose at all. It's gonna be a 5/32 hex key. Now again, I'm gonna put these in the pre-drilled 12-inch on-center location, which are the holes, but you can put these anywhere you want throughout the slot if you have a specific roof layout that you're going for. If you use the slot, I do recommend you use a washer. You'll notice that we send flat washers for every bolt. I don't use them when I'm putting them in these holes because the fit is so nice that the washer isn't needed, and I think it looks cleaner. But I do use the washer if I'm gonna put it in this slot. Okay, so we'll go put the hardware in the other end of this and repeat for the other extrusions. With all the extrusions tight, we're gonna go ahead and put in the rear panel now. Again, you can do this by yourself if you're careful. Washers, in my opinion, optional on the outside, but I am gonna use both flat washers and lock washers on the inside. And before I tighten it up, I'm gonna bring this surface flush with this edge, and I'm gonna make the back flush as well. Once you've got that, cinch that down. Now we're gonna prep the front fairing. There's a hardware kit labeled front fairing hardware. We're gonna attach this extrusion to the back side of the fairing through the holes in the front into these sliding T-nuts. So I'm gonna basically line these up with these holes. So we're gonna put all 8 in and line them up. Now I'm gonna set this fairing directly on top, and hopefully I can see all 8 of those. I like to get a couple of these started to help hold everything else in place. Then you can kind of shift these back and forth if you didn't get them lined up perfectly. Usually you can use the end of your tool to get that centered under there. Now with them all in, you can see I don't have the ends of the extrusion lined up perfectly. So I'm gonna slide everything over until it feels flush, just like that. So now we wanna Loctite these in place. So I'm just gonna peg a couple of them down so it can't slide. And I'm gonna take out one at a time and give them some Loctite. Just a little drop is all you need. Now we know that we can tighten these down as we go because everything is in the right position. And just repeat until you have all 8. Now we're gonna put our edge trim on the front fairing. So this just snaps on. It has these grippy little teeth, for a lack of better words. I like to wrap it all the way around to where it's gonna meet the roof rack, but I also like to cut it on the right angle so it looks clean. So I'm just gonna hold it there for reference and snip it on about the proper angle here to line up. There's a little bit of the metal left in there that I'm gonna remove because that's sharp. It's what gives it its shape, but this last little sliver won't do anything but cut me when I go to put it on. So I'm gonna start at this end, work all the way around to the other end, and then I'll trim the other end when I get there. It just pushes on. I'm gonna make a mark where I want my cut to be so the angle is right. I'll peel it back just a little bit and cut along that mark. Now it's ready to put on. This is a part of the install that I really recommend having a friend. You can do it by yourself, but I don't think it's worth the risk on a brand new vehicle. So I'm gonna grab Ethan, and he's gonna hand one end across to me. We're gonna use all 3 bolts in this case that go in the end of the extrusion and a washer because we're putting these bolts into a slot. We're gonna leave this one a little loose for a minute until we get all the bolts in. Now it's time to center the rack and to set the height. So the front really can't adjust much left to right, but the rear can. So I'm gonna center the rear of the rack based on the slots. And also I'm gonna look at both sides and make sure that what I see when I look down this side compared to the weather strip and the roof rail is a mirror of what I see on that side. And I know from looking at it a few minutes ago that right here is where I want it. So I'm gonna tighten down this rear mount on both sides, left and right. Now we're gonna set the height. At the lowest position, it's almost touching the roof, and that's a little bit too close for comfort, in my opinion. But all the way up looks a little silly, so we put a little adjustment in there for you. I'm gonna go for about a 1/4 inch under here, or more importantly, between 3/8 and a half along here. And you want that gap to be consistent from the back to the front. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten one bolt down here. And then I'll go to the front and check it. We definitely want to bring it up a little bit to match. This stage is really up to you and what you think looks good. I like it right there. I'm going to tighten down all the bolts into the mounts on this driver's side, and then I'm going to make the passenger side match. The last set of mounts that we have to install are called pressure mounts. You notice they don't have any bolt holes. They're going to ride on this weather strip, and their job isn't so much structural as it is to cut down on any extra vibration that the front fairing may have. So it's gonna bolt to the side of the roof rack, to the forward 2 holes, and its job is just to stick down to the weather strip and make sure that there's not any excess vibration. The reason we call it a pressure mount is because we're gonna install it with a bunch of pressure. So we're gonna stick it in place with the VHB tape, and then I'm gonna lift up on the roof rack front corner as I tighten it down, so that when I let go of the roof rack, it's got a bunch of pressure pushing down on this mount. So in order to be able to lift up on this front corner, I'm gonna loosen my front mounts on each side a few good turns. Now we're gonna take our strip of VHB tape. Your tape will be a little bit narrower than this one. This is just my shop roll, so it'll be a little cleaner looking on your install. I'm gonna cut this to the length of this pressure mount and install that tape in place, and I will go ahead and peel the backing off of it, which can sometimes be the hardest part. Now, with as sticky as this stuff is, you only want to stick it down once. So I'm going to slide it in place to where these holes are, and then make sure it's lined up before I drop it down onto the weather strip. I can see my slots. I'm actually even going to go ahead and put my bolts in from the outside just so I know it's lined up. Now with those in, I'll let it drop all the way down. I'm gonna install the flat washer, lock washer, and nut, and I will tighten these down now. So to make sure this is lifted up a bit, I'm gonna use this rag, or you can use some cardboard. Just watch out, be careful for your paint. I'm gonna lift up on this and wedge that under there. So the side of our roof rack has some pressure on it. Then I'll allow that front pressure mount to drop down as far as it will, and I'll tighten down the hardware for it. I'm gonna pull this towel back out from the front and do the same thing on the other side. Both pressure mounts are installed. Now we're gonna cinch down the middle and the front mounts on both sides, and that'll cinch everything down into place. I'm gonna start with the middle and work my way forward. After looking at it, I actually went back and dropped it just a little bit more. I think it just looks a little cleaner. Just wanna make sure that you're still not within flex distance of anything that moves. You don't want it to be right on it and chip your paint. So I've still got a good gap, but it's a little cleaner of a gap. That also put a little bit more pressure on our pressure mount. So the last thing to do is to adjust the height of our front fairing. Now I've determined that at this height, I think I have the best clearance at about the halfway point. So I'm centering this thing in this slot based on the gap around the washers. And that gives me a nice tidy gap across the front. Tighten down both sides. And that wraps up the install. Now you're good to go ahead and put on any of the accessories we mentioned earlier. And I want to show you a quick tip for a rooftop tent. So most of your tents are going to clamp or bolt directly to these cross members. Once you've done that, the easiest way to take that tent on and off time and time again is, instead of reaching through here and undoing the hardware that clamps the extrusion to the tent, just take out the bolts from the extrusion, of the extrusions that are clamped to the tent. So say it's this one and this one, just take out these bolts, and the same on the other side, and lift the entire assembly up and out of the way. Then when you put it back on, all you have to do is drop it in place and line up these bolts. It's so much easier than trying to fish your hand underneath all that, especially if you like real tight clearances like we do. I think it looks the best. Anyway, if you have any questions, reach out to us. Thanks for watching.